Hi everyone, thank you for coming back, or if it's the first time that you're here, welcome! Don't get too excited, I didn't make a Le Creuset pot, but I did make a cake based on this beautiful Beauty and the Beast design, so let's see how it went. I started out with a vanilla cake that I added some yellow food colouring into to make it look a bit more like Belle's dress. I then levelled off the top and then sliced it into 2 even pieces. Then on a cake board I took a little bit of buttercream and just popped it on the bottom, and then I started building up my cake. On the first layer I put a generous thick coating of blue vanilla buttercream, smoothed it out with my spatula, and then added the bottom of my cake as the top of my cake so it had a nice even edge, and then did a crumb layer by using more of this blue buttercream and then filling in any edges that I may have missed with some extra buttercream and using my spatula to finish it off. Then after cleaning the board I popped it in the fridge for about half an hour, then it was ready for the rest of the icing. I then piped on a generous amount of the buttercream on the sides and around the top, and then took my spatula and smushed it all around until it was nice and smooth, and then I took my dreaded cake scraper and then smoothed out the sides, and it wasn't perfect but it did turn out a bit better than last time, and I smoothed out the top to get a nice even finish. And it was time for the decorations, and some people will be very mad at me for doing this, but I took some white fondant and coloured it red and worked it until the colour worked through. I then split that fondant into 2 balls. This is actually a really nice simple way to make roses that I learnt in school many years ago. I basically just rolled out the fondant and then took some piping tips of various sizes to make some circles. I then took the smallest circle and folded it in half to make the middle of the rose. I then used the circles from the smallest to the largest and just wrapped it around the first piece just so that it formed the petals of the rose. So I'm not going to lie, this takes quite a lot of patience and it's quite fiddly, and it did take me a couple of attempts to remember how to do it, but once you're done it looks like this. And then I had to make a second one, and practice makes perfect, and the second one actually turned out a lot better than the first one did. So I just used exactly the same technique, taking the little fondant circles and just wrapping them around each other to form the petals, and then I just pinched them just to give it a bit more of a realistic look. Then to make the handle of the Le Creuset pot, I took a good hunk of yellow fondant and made it into a ball. I then rolled it out slightly and then used my fingers just to smooth around the edge, and then the edges of my hand just to make it a bit more round. Then I used my thumb to make a little imprint in it, and then it was basically ready. I then took some almond extract and put them in some ramekins and added some lustre dust, red, gold and green. I should have used alcohol because it dries a lot quicker and leaves a nicer finish, but I took the fondant pieces, added a bit of water in the back, and then stuck them onto the cake. In hindsight, I should have used fondant to get it as thin as I wanted to and as neat as I wanted it to be, but because I'd never piped like this before, I used some yellow buttercream with a very thin piping tip, and it failed miserably. I tried to hide it by using the piping tip to move things around, and I tried to build it up the roses and add the detail, but it just got worse. So I had to pick it off with a knife and then use some more of the blue buttercream to smooth it over. So I tried again and I failed again. But I was determined, so I picked it off again, smoothed it out, and then third time's a charm? It kind of worked out okay the third time, so I added the extra detail and then smoothed out any rough edges with a paintbrush, and then added on the roses that I'd already painted with the lustre dust. To finish with the decoration, I piped on some leaves, just filling it in and then using a knife to smooth it over, and then literally everything had lustre dust added to it. So the button on the top was gold, as were the rose stems, and I used some green lustre dust on the leaves. And then this is what it looked like when it was finished. It wasn't perfect and not exactly how I wanted it, but it turned out okay. So thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Goodbye!